مساء الخير جميعا. Good afternoon. To answer your question, actually, working with the climate change for the last 30 years in Jordan, what we see actually that, and based on all the studies that have been conducted in Jordan through the different ministries and so on, that we have what we felt actually that based on our studies and on the actual data that we have a decreasing trend in precipitation and increasing trend in temperature. And based on the climate change projection, actually, we have all the studies indicated that we have a warmer climate, which means that we have in the middle of the century, the temperature can increase by 2 degrees, and the end of the century can reach to 4 degrees. And also we have a drier climate. So we have warmer and we have a drier climate where we have also an obvious reduction in precipitation. And all these actually will be reflected in the water sector in reducing the surface water availability, and it can reach from about 10 to 30% in many basins in Jordan. And also we noticed that there is also a reduction in the groundwater recharge with the same amount, almost about 30%. So this also will be reflected on the water quality, the reduction in the supply for the rain-fed agriculture. So you will see that the water sector is mostly affected, and the other related sector. And we shouldn't forget the health sector, which is also another sector that is already highly impacted and will be impacted by the climate change.
Agriculture.
Yes, and the agricultural sector, we noticed that also that the agricultural productivity is also reduced due to climate change. So I think the climate change impacts is very clear in many sectors, especially the water sector and the other related sector. So what we need actually is really to think strategically. We need to have a strategic approach to address these challenges that already mentioned by the first panel. We don't say that we have also opportunities. We have good opportunities. We have also some limitation. So we need to work in a strategic way to get benefit from these opportunities and try to minimize these limitations. If I need to say that what we need in the water sector or the water sector, the aiming is to have a climate resilient water sector. We need to have a climate resilient water sector for water quality and quantity, as well as we need to have to minimize the impacts on the water infrastructure in general. And the other goal, if I need to put another goal for the government of Jordan, is to mainstream in a real manner the climate change issues in all the policies, because with the priorities. So as you see that we notice frequent drought. We notice also frequent floods, flash floods. Also, as you see, if I need to talk about the health sector, we notice in the last 5 years many heat waves, many sand dust storm. All these can be attributed to climate change, and we need to really think carefully. We are just actually lucky that we get a project from the NIH, the National Health Institute. This is the first project that we get in the Middle East. It is called the GeoHealth Hub, where we need to be a hub for the Middle East on the climate change and the health, and we are looking for to have it a climate change hub for the globe, for the whole region, all the regions. So we are working with the Harvard University, with the University of California, Berkeley. We have also worked with the California, San Diego. We have also the Mohammad Khashashneh University, and we have the Belmont University. We are really working hard to have at least we are focusing on this project on the health impacts. So this is, I think, and I give you...
Thank you very much, and very commendable efforts. Thank you. Ms. Suzanne?
Thank you very much for this introduction, because it's already what I have to say also. I'm talking on behalf of IDAMA. I've worked with the water sector for 35 years of my age. We are living now the climate change. We cannot deny that we are really living and seeing, everybody is feeling the effects. We are having increased temperatures, and it's noticeable, decreased rainfall. Even Stanford University recently had a new paper analyzing about 58 rain stations over a span of from 1970 till 2015, and concluded that the rainfall is decreasing by 0.4 millimeter per year. And the FAO also have said that over the last 10 years, the rainfall decreased by more than 20%. So it is evident, and we can feel it. Also, droughts are now, we have seen droughts, and for the first time in our lives, we have seen that more than half of the dams have dried up completely. This was the first time in our life that we see dams dry up completely. And it is attributed mainly to climate change, maybe also to some man-made reasons, but main reason was the patterns of rainfall are now different. We have more than flash floods. Rainfall is now located in certain areas, and Stanford also study have concluded that although most of Jordan is arid, and 90% of the country receives less than 200 millimeters of rain. Also now, the new trend will be higher rainfall areas will have more rain, and drier areas will have less rain. So if we look at, for example, the distribution of the dams, I recall your last interview with Al-Mamlaka, you suggested that we might consider or reconsider new locations for the dams to collect more rain, if that will be the trend due to climate change. So this is the main issues that I will say, and maybe with the discussion we bring up more issues.
Thank you, Suzanne. Well, I think I don't have much to add on Jordan. If I can also reflect, as you asked Raghad, on how do we feel climate change from Europe's perspective. As I represent the European Union here, I think also, as Suzanne rightly mentioned, Europe had one of the most hot summers ever, at least in the past couple of hundred years, in 2022. And we've seen even a decline on the level of water in some major rivers, most of European rivers, which had much more impact even not only on water supply, but in fact on trade and on transport, mobility, and many other elements, even actually on the living environment.
They had even
people.
Death issues because of the high temperatures.
On top of what Dr. Fayez and Engineer Suzanne mentioned, I think we're witnessing lots of alarming elements due to changing climate, and sadly mostly enforced by humankind and negative actions that we are still contributing to. So no doubt the trends have been huge. Even in the Gulf, we've seen areas that are receiving rainfall yearly increasing gradually, while we see different patterns as well in different parts of the world. So I think on climate change feelings, we totally witness that. I believe my colleagues have touched on that quite well, and maybe we give the chance for more input on.
Okay, so let me just throw a few things, your way, and feel free to answer what you like. Jordan is one of the countries that really suffers from water scarcity. Over and above, we have influxes of refugees because of the political situation that we are surrounded with. We also see, even like, normal people, we see certain observations. Like I, for one, remember the Dead Sea being at a certain point, and then gradually there's a shrinkage in the Dead Sea. So, can you give me your take on, the scarcity of water? Then we have the leakages in the system, and it's not just about changing dams and there's less rainfall, but there are a lot of things that we need to manage. We need like better maintenance. We need to be able to control these, at least things that we can control. So can I take your take on this, please?
Actually, you are addressing here the adaptation, what we need to do actually to address this water scarcity problem. I think innovation is one of the way that we need to go, where actually Jordan is very good in wastewater reuse, and this is a wastewater reuse is a good option to adapt for climate change. We have the desalination is another option. So these are, and also we need to working on building or creating a new technology for groundwater recharge, so that we increase instead of having most of the water are evaporated, we need to think about some like underground dams and so on to have more water conservation. Two issues actually that I will about the challenges or what we need to do actually without really having a good monitoring schemes, without having a good data sharing and good data accessibility, we can't do much on that. So whatever research we do on climate change impacts on water quality or whatever sector, data is an important issue, and we need to really strengthen our monitoring system in terms of stream flow, rainfall, and this is another issue. Also, we need to really activate the research and development. And we say research and development, but universities are working alone, ministries are working alone. We need really to think that research is one of the issues that we need to think about it for at least designing or whatever suggestion, studying the adaptation measures, different adaptation measures. The universities, the researchers are very important, and they should be involved in these activities, and they can give a good advice for the government. We already, for me, for example, I already worked with many countries in climate change, but I worked with most of the national communication report. I participated with the Ministry of Environment. I think there should be a room for the different research institutes to be involved with the ministries.
You've mentioned the water scarcity and the increasing gap between supply and demand. Supply is, as they say, it's constant, but I say it's decreasing because of many factors that we will come to later. And of course, demand is increasing due to natural growth, development requirements, and as you said, influxes of refugees. Let us say that also Jordan has a certain strength in that it is really resilient. And we can adapt ourselves to those influxes, and we can live and we share to a certain extent, of course. That all resulted in the per capita share of water for the people of Jordan is decreasing dramatically. Until now, we are talking about 70 meter cube per capita per year. And if that decreased further to reach 40, for example, we will be threatened in terms of our health, because the WHO have set the limit for Jordan at 40 meter cube per capita per year. Under that, we might suffer from health impacts, disease related to water. So we have not to really tolerate that decrease of the per capita share of water. Thus, we need to find new supplies of water, and now we are looking at big mega projects that are very costly in terms of financing and in terms of energy. So also we have to find solutions to bring in more water with feasible prices and affordable prices to the people of Jordan. In terms of water quality, also it will be threatened with the climate change, and we might find new patterns of disease. Now we can see all over the world that new emerging diseases are happening. We might even experience malaria or cholera. So we have to take care of that, and the WHO have created the climate resilient water safety planning, which is a risk management approach that one of the dreams, then when we come to the dreams, I wanted to see it institutionalized, because Jordan was one of the first countries in the region to adopt it, but not yet as a mandatory requirement. We are reluctant, and many countries of the region had سبقونا. Non-revenue water is a main problem in Jordan. It has both, of course, the physical and the management part of the non-revenue water. And the new strategy, when we have launched the vision for Jordan for the coming 10 years, we've said that the non-revenue water is the prime important issue. You cannot bring in new water while you are losing 50% of the water. So you have to act now. They said that when you deal with the technical non-revenue water, you will need a long time. You need billions, because it deals with the whole infrastructure. But the quick win is dealing with the administrative part, which is the illegal use. And another dream is to see that real enforcement of the laws, and that violators and people who are stealing the water of Jordan should be punished with a punishment that will not, even to be jailed, in my opinion. So for now, this is the main issue.
Shukran, Suzanne. Well, if I can compliment as well, I think I'll have one more aspect. With such scarcity and challenges we are faced with in terms of water supply, as well as management, as Engineer Suzanne rightly mentioned, we cannot also forget that the water sector is a heavy consumer of energy. And to make a supply of water for all citizens with such challenging conditions is the use of a huge amount of electricity. Actually, within our topic, and as we are moving towards Sharm el-Sheikh, this is quite important. It's a sector, and Suzanne can correct me, that consumes more than 40% of its annual budget purely on electricity. And it's challenging because it has a big impact on climate change, yet still it's a need that we need to continue with. This was something that we also, as international community, have foreseen within the Aqaba Amman water desalination and conveyance. And we thank His Excellency Dr. Khashashneh for his proactive role in even presenting the project as part of the nexus that we need, where green energy can play a major role as well in at least minimizing the challenges in the water sector, whether in terms of supply or even desalination. And I know Engineer Suzanne mentioned some of the solutions, same for Dr. Fayez. We have non-traditional water sources that also need more investment, but still we can consider those. No doubt non-revenue water is a huge title, but I think there are some opportunities in which we can enhance more use and enhance opportunities. So thinking more green and more positive. Whether it's water sources such as brackish water and grey water in particular, easy and simple solutions, but equally important integration of green energy into the sector, and with this we can also integrate the food security as well. And on top, no doubt, thinking beyond the stage. Today, we have some challenges within the sector. Sludge management, for example. It can be converted again into an excess model where biogas can be generated, electricity, as well as compost. So there are many positive elements stemming out from these challenges that we can think of, in which we can direct even more investments, more job creation, and minimize altogether minimize the negative impact on climate change with such positive solutions. So with all the challenges we are faced with in Jordan particularly, but equally important in many parts of the world, I believe there are opportunities in which we can convert such challenges into positive approach with an aim really to tackle climate change at large.
Thank you so much for your input. So, Omar, if I were to ask you, like, even though you gave us your perspective on Europe, how is climate change being felt in terms of temperature change and social anxiety? Because people are subject to social media, the news, and everything, you know, our sources are not limited anymore. So do you see this? How do you see it? How do you feel it? And maybe give us an idea about indirect impacts.
Well, look, indirectly, I think it's a source of data sharing that we can even utilize better. I like the first session when we mentioned we need to shift. Thank you, Dr. Nidal. Thanks to Dr. Nidal, we need to shift from awareness into education. So I believe this could be really something as an entry point, because all the world has witnessed the negative impacts of climate, including the temperature, as you rightly mentioned. So I believe these are really important factors that we can use and build on within education systems, within exchange, more openness, and try also to reflect really better messages. I don't say that people do not yet believe in climate change, but sadly, in some parts, in some decision-making processes, in some parts of the world, you can feel that people are not yet 100% clear about the impacts of climate change. Whether developing countries or developed, which during the convention of parties, there's always the conventional exchange of accusations that the developed countries have contributed a lot to climate change, while developing countries are being impacted. So I think we can use that as well in order to somehow incentivize people to get involved. As we say, we walk towards COP27. I believe this is one main area that we can utilize, anyways, to sensitize people at large, whether decision makers or local communities, industries, and others. And also we need to use it at large against the biggest contributors to climate change. Some of the negative actions that happened through the year, I'm sad to bring back the Russian war aggression against Ukraine, which has also a big impact on climate change as well. Needless to say, even on other related topics, food security, energy supply and security of supply, as well as others. And maybe His Excellency Mr. Irani mentioned that this also can create a concern, especially that big countries can shift to conventional sources of energy, at least from our side, and this is what we even use in social media. We assure you that the European Union is still all the way towards its green transition. In fact, renewable energy targets have been raised to reach up to around 55% by 2030. And also going beyond, emissions reduction up to also 55% by 2030 and zero hopefully by 2050 to be the first climate neutral continent in the world. And even there has been a raise on the energy efficiency targets. So there are many ongoing actions, and we also believe in the famous norm that leaving no one behind. So we like to act in partnerships, and we're happy that together with Jordan, we have many joint initiatives, including chairmanship of the Union for the Mediterranean, where Jordan and the EU are leading a lot of work in this particular hotspot. The Mediterranean is one of the most hotspots in climate change. So again, it all goes back to your original inquiry that we should utilize social media positively and reflect really the clear impacts of climate change, and somehow enhancing sensitization of all target groups, so that we all act together.
So on a more positive note, Suzanne, I believe that IDAMA do have some facts and figures that maybe you can share with us in regards of the carbon emission and how we have managed to lower carbon emissions out of Jordan, and any other positive notes that you can share with us. That would be fantastic for everybody on the other side to hear.
Thank you. On that, maybe Anwar and the others can be more of a data source. I am a water specialist mainly, so we are impacted as we know, but I don't know really about the emissions themselves and the targets and how much we have achieved. But for the positive, as you said, regarding the opportunities available for Jordan, I do also say that we have non-conventional water resources not used and utilized yet. Jordan utilizes 90% of the treated wastewater, which we call it reclaimed water. And that is a success story to Jordan in the region. And we have even trained people from Saudi Arabia on the case of Jordan, how they can use it in a sound manner. So it all is used for agriculture, of course. And that source is it will be increasing with time. It's the only source that is sustainable and will increase with the increased population. Also, we have another big asset is the youth in Jordan, who are very much into the to translate the humum, to translate the
pain
problems.
Points, the pain points. Yeah.
Many of the youth have initiated agricultural pilots to produce goods with minimal amounts of water. This has to be taken by the government and to be scaled up. We have many
The government is taking notes,
yes.
So that's good.
The youth are a big asset in Jordan. Another thing is the energy, the renewable energy sources. I think we have some institutional issues that are somehow limiting the use of reclaimed renewable energy in even water production. So it has also to be considered on a national level.
And taking advantage of that, like I realize you're not like your strong field or your field of expertise is water, but even like talking to the audience in general, Jordan is one of the countries that is blessed with sunshine most of the year, and like if we look at Europe, Europe is deprived of that sunshine. So maybe we can take advantage of this and kind of like and then there's the other subject of carbon credits. This is something else because, again, Jordan is a country that does not have oil resources, but everybody else around us does have oil resources, and there's always emissions from the oil fields and the gas fields. So these are just like, I'm not a specialist. I'm a business person, but I'm trying to help moderate this panel as best as I can. So please, Omar, if you can, that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Raghad. Well, actually, even I don't brag, almost 14 years ago, and even before, there were ideas on interconnectivity of the continents, Europe versus the Middle East and North Africa. And actually, His Royal Highness Prince Hassan was the first to talk about such interconnections with the famous white paper that he presented to the Club of Rome. That later was the base for President Sarkozy of France to present the Mediterranean Solar Plan. And in fact, today, we as EU, we have done many technical as well as market studies on electricity interconnection, and you cannot imagine the level of opportunities there are. Today actually is more important than ever, especially after the Russian war aggression against Ukraine. early this year, where interconnectivity is more important. There are many ideas being sought at this stage. No doubt there are quick fixes at the moment. Europe needs energy, sources are coming from different parts of the world, but the more sustainable source is green energy. And with that, there could be more interconnections between the three continents. And Jordan plays a major role in that, whether it's the geopolitical position or, as we all know, the fact that Jordan lies in the solar belt of the world when it comes to solar energy. So there is different options at this stage. I would join my voice to Dr. Khashashneh, but equally important to the colleagues at the Ministry of Energy whom are following this up at the moment. His Excellency Dr. Kharabshe and his team are following this. There was one important regional green energy conference early this year done together with Germany. And all the focus was on interconnectivity with new sources such as hydrogen, which comes hand in hand with water management as well as renewable energy management. So the region, including Jordan, can play a major role in the coming stage. And I think it's the time really to maximize such opportunities for ourselves here in Jordan.
Thank you, Omar. So we have any questions from the audience? Does anybody like to put forward a question, a suggestion, an insight? Okay, تفضل.
And sorry again that I become late to the mood, and that's why maybe some points now is coming. In terms of coordination.
Can you please introduce yourself so that we know?
Yes. Mohammad Khashashneh, SG of the Ministry of Environment. I am assuring you that we do every effort in cooperation with our partners, including EU, UNDP, and others, and private sector, NGOs, to coordinate the national effort to fight against climate change. And one of those action that we did with the World Bank, it's called the MRV system. It is monitoring, registration, and verification of all projects that conducted in Jordan. And we started to run this system where we can identify all projects and enterprises that they are working in solar energy, maybe the wind and others. And we have, it is maybe this information, it is good to everybody knows that now we reach 29% from the electrical general mixed, and we've been in 2014 1%. Now we have 29%. It is a big achievement. We are the first country in the region. And we are looking to have more in terms of new generation from solar energy, as well as Omar said, efficiency. Efficiency is very important, especially in water sector. We have 14,000 requests to change the water pumps from traditional fuel to renewable energy source. And we already changed for 500 of those, but this is one of the areas where we can have big progress. Another things, carbon credit. Carbon credit also, it is an encouragement tool for different establishments to be in, and we are trying to have, in cooperation with our partners again, criteria, national criteria, how to come in, how we trade, how we registered, how the general criteria that comes from Kyoto Protocol and based of our national circumstances. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I think we have a question from the audience. We'll grab your microphone. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you for all, and thank you for the panelists for your input. My name is Firas Rahahle, and I'm the manager of Aqaba Bird Observatory, belong to the Royal Society for Conservation of Nature. I have a suggestion, and I have something to say belong to climate change. The climate change impact variant between the countries, and there are different impacts. But when the impact become critical, that's become the starts of the solution. So I think we will have in the worldwide in this decade adaptation measures, and adaptation measures sometimes using the mitigation measures. For example, when we talk about Europe, now Europe has a critical energy crisis, and that will encourage them to think about out of the box, and to find some solutions either than the fuel or the fuel. So now we have to think about adaptation, and we have to solve our problems by adapt with it, and now and that will give us good opportunities to make to make different than what always thinking about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Sam, do we have any questions from people who are joining us online?
So Raghad, we have a couple of questions. So one is, what difference could it make if we establish sustainability in the educational curriculum, schools or universities? So we've talked a little bit about education, we talked a little bit about schools, but perhaps just to come back to that and ask somebody that question, I think that would be great if anybody can answer. And then we have a second one, which is so that was from Katharina Finger. We have a second one from Wasim A. And the question here is around, do we have financing in place for green projects which are accessible for investors as well as individuals? How can we access more of the green, how can we access more of the green fund at country level?
Okay, so maybe I know how to answer that one, but the first question about education, I would leave to Dr. Fayez to answer.
The climate change, when we come to climate change, education and research are very important pillar to address the climate change. And actually, if we look, if we look for the climate change studies that are already conducted in the region, Jordan or in the region, you can search by the Google, and so you will not find many studies on the climate change and the human health in heat waves, and so that we need to create such kind of disciplines, such kind of new graduates who are familiar with this. This is why we would like, for example, in the Jordan University of Science and Technology, now in the medicine school, we are creating a new department called Environmental Health. It will focus more on climate change and health. And there are, I think, in the Jordan University of Jordan, they have also a master program. You have in the Hashemiyat University some kind of issues. So that we need to have a new researcher, new graduate, new experts that are really to work with this challenging problem in climate change. And also we need to think about the not only raising awareness. It's only we need to build our new curriculums so that next semester I convince the engineering college to offer a course, the first course that offer in the engineering college about climate change. So it will be an elective course for the master, so that we hopefully that with these kind of changes we need to raise the awareness by education. And by having also new graduates that they can go to the market and work with these kind of problems that we don't have people can do it. So that if you go, for example, you see that if there is no single research paper in the Middle East about the sand dust storm and climate change or heat waves and climate, you will not see this. So that we need, by planning from now, by the next 5 years, 10 years, that we'll have this kind of fill the gap, fill the market with the experts that are already readable to tackle these kind of challenges that are induced by the climate change.
Thank you very much. And I believe that this is on a university level from an opinion from academia, and Dr. Irani in our previous session mentioned that even school curriculums have now climate change and awareness in all aspects of environment and water preservation. So both of these are being tackled. I'm sure we need extra efforts and to have more diversified disciplines that are taught to universities and even on a vocational educational level. As for your point in regards to financing and availability of partners who can finance, I believe there is going to be a huge component of that answer during COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh during the event itself. And I'm sure we can announce everything that is going to be happening there later on using this platform or other platforms. So
I can add here as well, Raghad.
Please do.
I'm very sure COP27 will have a lot to offer on finance. As EU, and when I say the European Union, including the 27 member states, we're committed since 2020 with more than 23 billion euros every year on climate change. So our commitment continues. But also because Sam referred to possibly small size support initiatives, and thanks to Her Excellency Mrs. Nadia Al Saeed in the first panel, she referred to some of the green banking opportunities. In the past few years, together with financing institutions such as EBRD, AFD, KfW, EIB, we've been offering a mix of loans and grants to different initiatives, including private sector. And when we tackle private sector, I mean small and medium-sized enterprises, not necessarily big initiatives. Maybe our dear friend Samer
was a different project.
It was a bigger mega
PPP,
project.
yeah.
So we do offer that, but equally important, we have now moved more into green banking initiatives. And together with Mrs. Al Saeed, as well as other banks, and equally important, some microfunds, like Microfund for Women, we started like 3 initiatives this year, where together with EBRD, they're offering a loan to the banks, to the commercial banks, as well as the funds, such as Microfund for Women, with a grant from our side as EU for an incentive scheme, as well as technical assistance component, in which we offer green funding opportunities. And it doesn't stop. As in the case of Samer, it was a big renewable energy project, but in fact, it's all about energy efficiency, water, and environment initiatives. We've done an initial project with AFD some years ago as well. It was about sustainable finance, but now it's being more institutionalized together with the commercial banks here. And this is one entry point that we feel it's important, where we can provide more funds through the banks as well as some of the funds. Hopefully we can also build on existing national funds like the JREEF at the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Environment Fund as well. So more opportunities are offered for such green initiatives. So it's taking place. It's gradually being more implemented. And actually it shows also the commitment on the financiers side, but equally important on the beneficiaries side.
Thank you so much. So I think, Sam, I can safely hand it over to you to give us a wrap-up and an overview of both our sessions today. Thank you so much, the panelists, the audience, the RSCN, Dr. Khashashneh from the Ministry of Environment, and of course you, Sam, for leading all of this, gluing all of this together, and the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for the questions from the floor. Thank you to all the speakers, and Raghad, particularly thank you to you, I think, for steering us through that. That was great. So yes, we heard a lot about the challenges, and obviously that's not a surprise. I think one thing from being outside of the country, so the order of magnitude of the potential challenge is, as you know, somebody talked about for instance, relocating dams. I mean, that sounds like an unbelievably massive infrastructural undertaking. So it gives us some indication, I guess, of the potential challenges that climate change can deliver upon. I think another challenge, I guess, is the speed of progress. Again, that came up a few times and people pointed at progress, but certainly at the beginning, there was a sense that that progress needs to speed up. It's not enough in where we've got to. In terms of some of the responses, then not surprisingly, and this hasn't come up as strongly in every country, but it certainly came up today, was education. Of course, we've just ended on that. We had a question from the floor on that. And it's extremely interesting, education has many facets. So, you know, how quickly can education lead to action, for instance? I think the point was made is that this isn't a question of awareness building necessarily. It's awareness of what's being done, but also what needs to be done and what can be done by individuals and different types of organizations. So education, absolutely critical. We also touched on what I might call culture and care. So this thing about, you know, cleanup programs, not littering. And there was a bit of a split opinion, I think, on whether or not those are critically important or not. Everybody, I think, agrees we don't want, you know, rubbish or sort of non-circular approaches to different sectors, but where and how to actually move from that, I think, was subject to some debate. But certainly, you know, culture and care came through strongly as one possible need to change in order to address some of the environmental challenges. Integration came through strongly, and that is integration within an organization, so of sustainability and of climate change considerations, but also between organizations at a sectoral level or maybe across ministries. That came through as well. And then also we had quite a lot of discussion around inputs across country. So again, another important basis of integration. So that idea of an integrated response, of course, that is difficult, but if we think about it at the very least as constant communication and collaboration and open ears and lots of listening, as opposed to a sort of top-down, you know, design system, which is wholly comprehensive, which addresses every issue, I think it feels a lot less scary. So really interesting sort of bits and pieces around that. And then there's this point about, just to finish, this point about needing to be optimistic. So yes, of course we face challenge, but we do have to think about this being opportunity as well and being optimistic about it. There was a lovely point made that one of the biggest assets in Jordan is its youth. So obviously that's something to think about very hard. The future does belong to the youth. Of course, we need to change for the youth, but it looks like they're also changing and catalyzing change themselves, which is fantastic. There's been plenty of progress to build upon, which we heard about, which is exciting. There are natural assets which need protecting, like the beauty that Raghad talked about, but also, of course, natural assets which can help in the transition. So, for instance, the degree of opportunity for solar, for instance. And then just to finish, I think as we think about COP, again, this was touched on by a number of different people. I think the sort of the underpinning of the concepts of loss and damage and who pays and the need for significant finance to address some of the issues in Jordan and elsewhere is obviously going to be something which the Jordan delegation pursues and listens to hard and contributes to. So thank you, everybody. Raghad, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sam. And before I end the session, I want to extend thanks for the support of the Ministry of Environment, RSCN, IDAMA, Hans Seidel Foundation, and on behalf of everybody who is here live at the RSCN, thank you all. And thank you to our panelists, and thank you for being with us. I'm Raghad Alkhojah, CEO of Amcham Jordan. And thank you for everybody who has joined in virtually. And hope to see you all soon next time in Abu Dhabi when we have the COP28. Bye-bye.